What's up YouTube? How it goes? Winter's coming, it's getting chilly, but you know what keeps me warm at night? This super hot product. I'm talking about none other than the ASUS ROG Strix G513 laptop. This bad boy right here is rocking the latest AMD and NVIDIA configuration. So we've got the Ryzen 5900HX 8-core processor, 16GB of RAM in a dual-channel configuration at 3200 MHz. We also, of course, have the RTX 3050 on board with 4GB of VRAM. Additionally, we have a 512GB solid-state drive. It's also worth noting we have the latest Wi-Fi 6 as well as Bluetooth 5.1 standards on board. Lastly, this is a 15-inch full HD screen. Depending on the model you buy, you can get a higher resolution. Also, it's clocked at 144 Hz. Awesome. And in today's video, of course, we're going to do a detailed review to see where this laptop stacks in 2021, if this refresh is enough to keep it amongst one of the most popular gaming choices out there. As always, if you guys enjoy the content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel. We got a lot happening and I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Thank you for watching. Let's get started. Starting off with a real quick unboxing, the ROG Strix comes in the traditional black cardboard box we've become accustomed to with previous iterations, which in my opinion still looks pretty nice. Once you remove the content seal locator on the top side and proceed to actually open this massive box, inside the first thing you're going to notice is of course the king itself, the ROG Strix, and a ton of protective plastic wrapping. Once you remove all of that from here and there, here it is in all its glory. It looks exactly how I'd expect a modern day gaming laptop to look, with a hefty bit of weight mind you, but more on that in just a minute. Beyond that, you have this massive 200-watt charging brick, which surprisingly isn't as heavy as I expected to be. I guess that's a good thing, all things considered. Unfortunately, of course, it does have a proprietary cable as opposed to USB-C, but again, given the high wattage, I can understand why they went with the proprietary route. Aside from that, you also of course have the charging cable itself that plugs into the adapter or the wall outlet piece. And finally, you have the instruction manual, quick start guide, and warranty information. You know, the stuff you're never going to actually read. From a design perspective, this iteration of the G15 retains a design that's very similar to the previous generations of this laptop. Understandably so, ASUS had a lot of success with that model and it tries to keep a more conservative approach. Of course, with that said, a few things have changed. First and foremost, this laptop weighs approximately 4.61 pounds, making it one of the lighter gaming laptops in the 15-inch segment. And honestly speaking, sometimes the weight can be a little deceiving because the materials used here have definitely upgraded since the previous iteration that at least I reviewed. So starting with the top side, the first thing you're going to notice is that you now have a full metallic finish on the top side, which is a welcome change. This particular iteration also does have that ROG Strix logo. It has a reflective surface, and yes, this logo does light up. Some versions don't, some do. I believe the ones that are specifically marked as G Edition usually have the lighting ROG Strix logo. Aside from that, of course, you also have a bunch of passive vents on the top side. This is a gaming laptop, so expect holes pretty much everywhere. As you make your way to the rear side of this laptop, the first thing you're going to notice are those enormous exhaust vents. This is where essentially all the hot air comes out of, and this is a good thing. This means the laptop's getting plenty of cooling. You also of course have a USB 3.2 Type A port, a USB Type C port with power delivery capability. You also have a full-sized HDMI port, the good old Ethernet jack, and of course the proprietary DC charging port, and again the second exhaust vent on the other side. As you make your way to the sides of the laptop, you'll notice a few interesting things. So first, you have one of the two major air intake vents. This is where cool air enters the system. Right next to that, of course, you have two USB 3 ports, and that means there's plenty of I/O port diversity going on in this laptop overall. On the other side, you have the final air intake vent. That means there's lots of cooling happening. This is of course a great thing for a gaming laptop. Making our way to the bottom side of the laptop, the first thing you're going to notice, of course, is that you have a hard TPU or plastic finish, which is totally normal. Again, a bunch of air intake vents. These are more passive to maximize airflow. You'll also notice you have some Phillips head screwdrivers over here, which means this laptop lid can be taken on for upgradability options. Also, you'll notice on either corner, you do have two speaker grills. This is, of course, a stereo speaker setup. We will do a sound test later on in the video. As soon as you unfold this laptop, the first thing you're going to notice is that you have a generous amount of palm rest space, and you can definitely comfortably rest your palms on this machine. But perhaps even more impressive is the humongous amount of real estate space you have for the trackpad, which means you have plenty of surf area. It's also worth noting you have a glass surface finish, which isn't always common for gaming laptops in this price range, and the clicks are very tactile yet subtle at the same time. Most people will probably end up using a mouse when doing hardcore gaming, but this is great for all-day use, and it's definitely something I give kudos to ASUS for. When we make our way to the keyboard, I have to give it, the ROG Strix definitely makes some high quality keycaps. So they're not wobbly, they don't feel cheap or finicky in the slightest. You also have a robust amount of key travel, and whether you're gaming or typing, in general, it's going to be a great experience on this keyboard. The WASD keys also have this translucent effect going on to kind of emphasize this is a gamer's keyboard. Additionally, you'll notice you have a fully backlit keyboard here with the RGB spectrum and all. ASUS calls this their aura lighting, and you can customize using the Armory Crate software or the hotkey directly on the keyboard itself. It is worth noting you do not get a 10 key number pad, so if you were planning to do some Excel on the side aside from gaming, you may want to look elsewhere. Also, my only bone to pick with this keyboard is the fact that the arrow keys are so minuscule and puny. Seriously, it's a gaming laptop, ASUS. Come on, like, cheer up, make bigger keys. Aside from that, finally, I also want to mention you do not get any biometric support on this laptop, so no fingerprint scanner. Moving on to the hinge quality, ASUS uses a 2-tier hinge mechanism system here, which is quite reliable, sturdy, there's very little screen wobble, and it should last for the years to come as long as you don't use it like a total maniac. With that said, you're going to notice you have a pretty fat chin, comparable to my own, mind you. With that said, you do also have super thin bezels on the side, which are actually super sleek looking and more or less in line with 2021 standards. You also have a super sleek and super thin forehead, but don't get impressed over here. ASUS yet again cheaped out, and they still don't include a webcam. Seriously, it's such a ridiculous thing to cheap out on. I'm definitely cutting some points from this laptop for just not including a basic crappy 720p webcam. Let's talk about the display quality on this laptop. Just a quick disclaimer, depending on the configuration, region, as well as vendor of this laptop that you purchase from, your specifications in terms of display quality will most definitely vary. The one we have here is commonly found on lower end configurations of this laptop like the one we have here today. So for this model, we have a modest resolution of Full HD or 1080p, a 144 Hz refresh rate, which is of course respectable given that this is a gaming machine. Also, we do of course have a IPS panel on here with a 15-inch display. Now, where things get a little gloomy for this particular display is that you only have a 45% NTSC rating or approximately 56% sRGB. While for many people this won't be an issue, if you are a creative user or someone who has a high emphasis on color quality, you'll definitely notice the rather bland colors on the screen. Also, it's worth mentioning that this particular configuration only comes with a peak brightness of 250 nits. This should be enough for most indoor settings, but the minute things get too bright, whether you have too many lights on in your house or you're using it outside with the sun, hitting the screen, you're going to notice that this display gets easily dominated by external light sources despite being an anti-glare screen. So keep that in your equations. Let's talk about performance. This ain't your grandpa's AMD processor. This is the Ryzen 9 5900HX processor, and it's a beast of an 8-core processor. So, of course, day-to-day tasks like web browsing, watching HD videos, or typing up a Word document are gonna be ultra fast on this machine as you'd expect. Pick it up a notch and start doing stuff like 4K video editing. That 16GB of RAM, generally speaking, is more than ample to handle those kind of tasks, and the processor breezes through it as well. The RTX card, of course, also helps a ton. So there's little to no frame drops, you can do multiple layers of 4K editing, and it's going to be a silky smooth experience. But of course, only a loser buys a gaming machine for such minuscule tasks or peasant-like activities. You want to know about the big guns, the gamings. So of course, I tried a number of games. The one I've shown here is Doom Eternal. I was able to run it on the second highest setting at a consistent 90 plus FPS, despite only having a total VRAM of 4GB, which is definitely an improvement over previous generations. Now again, that 4GB of VRAM also does mean that some modern day games will not run at the highest possible setting or may not hit that 144 Hz that you want to get out of this display. I will be doing a full detailed gaming test in another video, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and you'll be the first one to know about it. I know a ton of you are wondering just how hot and how loud this machine gets. Well, in terms of thermals, when you're using this laptop under low activity usage or idle loads, it stays at a CPU temperature of approximately 51 degrees Celsius. Start doing more resource intensive activities, you hover around a sustained temperature of 80 to 85 degrees Celsius. That includes, of course, prolonged gaming. At its absolute peak, this machine can hit temperatures of up to 91 degrees Celsius. Of course, the fans kick in pretty quickly and start cooling it off at that point. With that said, in terms of fan noise, under idle loads, you cannot tell this thing has two fans. I mean, honestly, it's ultra quiet. It stays around, I believe, 21 decibels approximately, which again is pretty impressive. At its loudest, the fan can hit up to 45 decibels, which is pretty darn loud, but not the loudest as far as gaming laptops go. So again, this is a relatively quiet gaming machine. A wise man once said, "I pity the fool who buys a gaming laptop for battery life." Wise man, wise man. Anyway, I found under low usage, this laptop can get up to 4 hours of sustained battery life at approximately 50% usage. However, of course, the minute you start doing any sort of gaming-based activity, that drops to around 1.5 hours on average. And if you're running a really resource-intensive game at the highest possible settings with the battery mode, you're gonna drop to about 1 hour approximately. It is highly recommended you play any game of your choice while the laptop is plugged in for optimal performance. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is a stereo speaker setup. I personally found the speakers to be underwhelming in terms of their volume levels and clarity in general. Have a quick listen for yourself.
Way and I'm stabbing. I'll be moving crowds till I'm 6 feet napping. They need another fix, hooked on like an addict. I got my eyes on the prize and it's changing lives. I wanna live till I die, make a difference, right? I wanna give those in need a reason to fight. I wanna live every day like it's my last night. I wanna change how we play the game. Rearrange all the pieces till they say my name. Push an agenda against doing what they say. I wanna stand up and start a revolution. I wanna start a revolution.
The configuration we reviewed today is priced at approximately $1,100 USD. Now keep in mind again, depending on the vendor you buy from and the region you're in, there are multiple variations of this laptop. Configuration and price will of course vary. But all things considered, keeping that price range and the specification reviewed in mind, I still think the ROG Strix is a fantastic laptop. It has a respectable build quality, it's designed to last, it doesn't feel cheap or finicky like the ASUS Nitro does, for example. Also, I really appreciate the fact that ASUS includes a high quality trackpad and keyboard, which also makes this versatile for doing non-gaming activities. Unfortunately, the display on this base configuration does leave a lot to be desired, particularly in the brightness department. I will also say that the overall performance of the machine is again at its base configuration, so the 4 GB of VRAM with the RTX 3050 card here can be a little underwhelming for some games. It may restrict you from hitting that full 144 Hz that you desire to do so. But again, keeping in mind that this is the base configuration, a value machine, you get plenty of gaming performance here. There's a lot of power in this laptop. That Ryzen 9 chip definitely blew me away. The performance is fantastic. It can breeze through both a gaming and non-gaming intensive tasks. Overall, if you are looking for a gaming machine that will kind of be somewhat future-proof for the years to come and play games at relatively high settings, I can wholeheartedly recommend this laptop. If you need more power, look at the higher configurations, and you can also get this in higher refresh rates as well. As always, I will be doing a gaming test because this is of course a gaming laptop. So if you're interested in that, make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit that like button. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate your time. Catch you in the next one.